like many kids, he was experimenting in eighth grade, and I caught him smoking pot with a friend in our home. And I convinced him to wait until he was in college, where his brain was more developed, and hopefully when he was of age to experiment with it. So all through high school, Sammy was a pretty successful kid. He earned academic scholarships and lettered all 4 years in high school and varsity cross country, and um, went off to college with great hopes for his future. It was when he joined his fraternity in his sophomore year that he developed a habit of smoking pot, and um, he transferred even from his school in Indiana to Boulder, for lots of reasons, but now I wonder if it was also because of easy access to the dispensaries and marijuana in general. He took some time during COVID. He tried to quit smoking pot in August of 2020, which led to a psychotic episode with enough for his father and I to send him to an outpatient, or commit him to a 72-hour hold. And then that resulted in a 9-day commitment to an outpatient, actually it was inpatient psychiatric drug rehab hospital, which they pumped him full of Haldol and Ativan and another drug that I forget the name of, but he said it was the worst 9 days of his life. He came out of that. He had to take that semester off from school in order to wean himself from those drugs. And we agreed, to send him to therapy, to all the things that the hospital has you agree to. And we committed to those and fulfilled those agreements, which was therapy every week, going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. It was a variety of commitments, which he did. He went back to school in January of 2021 at CU Boulder, and he had just one semester to complete of school before he graduated. It was then that he bought a rifle at a pawn shop, and he did not have, there was no mental health check, or they don't check, for background checks or anything. Had they checked, they would have seen that he was hospitalized in Colorado the previous August. There were some signs of concern, but he was 23 years old at the time, and we took away his guns while he was hospitalized. And for a period of time, we put them in a locked safe in our friend's basement, which was a mistake. We should have put them in our own safe in our own basement, but we just didn't anticipate that he would go right over to their house and ask for them back. So he had two guns. He had a Glock. He was just a typical boy interested in guns. And when he was 18, he purchased a Glock, and then he purchased a rifle, and an assault rifle, at a pawn shop. March 31st, and this is corroborated by text messages and by testimony from his friend. On March 31st of 2021, he tried to quit smoking pot again. And by April 3rd, on the day he died, his brain was in full withdrawal. He was detoxing from THC, and he went on a hike with a new friend that he met in one of his classes. His friend didn't know the seriousness of Sam's history with THC and brought a joint with him on the hike and offered it to him. Immediately after smoking the joint, his friend shared with us that Sam thought he was lost in the woods. He thought he was being chased by somebody who was trying to come after him. And he ran back to his friend's parked car and called both his father and me And 20 minutes after the phone call, he got into an argument with his friend in the car. And I guess, according to his friend's testimony, he sort of angled the gun towards in his direction, or like gestured in some way. I'm not exactly sure, to make his friend frightened. So his friend dropped him off the side of the highway at Happy Canyon. Sam had his gun in his case because they were planning on going to a shooting range later that night or something after the hike, which is why he had it with him. His friend then called 911 and said, my friend and I just smoked a joint. I listened to the 15-minute 911 call. He let him know that he thought his friend was hallucinating and that his friend needed help and that he had a weapon. So when the police showed up, they showed up with guns. Several police officers showed up with guns pointing at him, and they were screaming at him and yelling at him to turn his gun over, to drop it and turn it over. And Sam kept repeating, I have a right to, this gun is registered. I have a right to carry it. But he wouldn't obey their orders, which he should have. But he was he was having a psychotic episode at this point, triggered by smoking the joint on the hike an hour before. And, for Sammy, he had delusions. He had an emerging mental disorder. We think it was a schizoaffective disorder because he had episodic psychosis. And in this moment, all his worst nightmares and fears were coming true, where he thought he was being followed. He thought that he had no idea his friend called 911. Just suddenly they showed up. He made a very unfortunate decision to get in a prone position and fire some shots in the direction of the police. The bullets hit the interstate street signs above their heads. I personally believe his mommy wasn't trying to hurt them. But of course, the police had no choice but to shoot and kill him in that moment. The message here is that if your child, or if your son or daughter or anyone is having mental health issues, that THC only makes it worse. It only exacerbates delusions, incoherent thinking, confusion, and the science is coming out to support it.